Hello, good evening. Nicola Sturgeon says she'll be able to make a judgment on whether to hold a second Scottish independence referendum by the end of this year. The First Minister said her decision would be made when the shape of a deal between Britain and the European Union becomes clear in the autumn. Her comments come ahead of the publication of a Scottish Government assessment on the impact of Brexit. Nina MacLeod reports.
The Scottish Government's position on Brexit is well known. Short of staying in the EU, Nicola Sturgeon wants Scotland to remain in the single market and customs union. Tomorrow's report will analyse the impact of Brexit on Scotland's GDP, trade and migration. The First Minister says it's shameful the UK Government hasn't provided a clear assessment, but the Scottish Government report will.
It's looking in a fairly sort of clear-eyed, hard-headed way at what the impact on our economy will be. I mean, don't get me wrong, as Scottish First Minister...
Does it say anything at all positive about Brexit?
I don't think Brexit is positive. I will look for the positives out of Brexit if I can find them.
Westminster has said the Scottish Government should be working with them to ensure the UK's vital internal market is protected. But there are hurdles to overcome, not least consent from the Scottish Parliament on a number of key issues surrounding the EU withdrawal bill.
Legislative consent is not a legal requirement for this legislation to be enacted by Westminster, but it probably is a political requirement, and the political price of enacting legislation without consent might be quite significant indeed.
The First Minister maintains that people need clarity on the future relationship between the UK and Europe, and ultimately the timetable for any vote on independence will be determined by how talks between London and Brussels go. Nina MacLeod, reporting Scotland.
The family of one of the victims of the Glasgow bin lorry crash have agreed an £800,000 compensation deal with the City Council. Gillian Ewing and 5 other people were killed when driver Harry Clark lost consciousness at the wheel of the lorry in Glasgow city centre just before Christmas 2014. The Ewing family lawyers said in a statement that it's been a life-changing and traumatic 3 years and that they can now start looking to the future and rebuilding their lives. A man is in a critical condition in hospital after being found injured in a street in Renfrew. The 37-year-old is being treated for serious facial injuries. He was discovered in Wilson Street in the town in the early hours of this morning. Police say they don't know if he was assaulted or fell, and they're appealing for witnesses. They want to speak to 3 men who were standing outside the motorbike shop in nearby Dunlop Street around the same time. Talks are continuing to try and rescue the construction company Karelian, which could reportedly collapse by tomorrow. The firm has around £1.5 billion of debt. Karelian holds a number of major government contracts, both in England and Scotland, including the construction of the Aberdeen bypass. The Scottish Government expects that work to continue and says it's monitoring the situation.
We're liaising with the UK Government, but we have some assurances about the major project, the Aberdeen peripheral route, in which Karelian is one of the 3 parts of the consortium. But we're also very concerned, obviously, about the workforce. There's a substantial number of people who work for Karelian in a number of areas in Scotland.
Sports now, and in rugby's European Champions Cup, Glasgow Warriors were defeated in Dublin by Leinster. Warriors managed this try in the second half by Adam Ashe, but in the end they were comfortably beaten. The final score was 55 points to 19, and Glasgow remain at the bottom of their group. Now, a ceremony has been held in Edinburgh to mark the 146th anniversary of the death of Greyfriars Bobby. The faithful Skye Terrier, said to have kept a constant guard over the grave of its owner in Greyfriars Kirkyard for 14 years. It had been feared that the ceremony would be marred after the gravestone of the dog's master was knocked over. But an Edinburgh funeral director found an expert to carry out repairs in time. The event's organisers say they were delighted the ceremony was able to go ahead, with a crowd of more than 100 people, plus dogs, coming to watch. Don't forget the dogs. Right, time for the weather forecast now, and Gillian's at the map for us.
Graham, thank you. Good evening to you. Wet and windy sums up the first half of tonight. It's already blowing a hoolie in many parts of the country, and it's down to this weather system bringing some heavy rain, especially for western Scotland, and strong to gale force winds. Severe gales, in fact, for the Northern and Western Isles and the North West Highlands. Gusts up to 70 miles an hour for a time. And then through the early hours, the strongest winds ease away into the North Sea, and the heaviest of the rain goes with them, leaving more of a showery picture with clearing skies across the north, allowing temperatures to dip low enough for a touch of ground frost and perhaps some icy patches taking us into tomorrow morning. A bit more scope for brightness tomorrow, especially in the northeast and across the borders, but plenty of showers feeding in from the west, and they'll be wintry initially across the high ground in the north, but then down to lower levels, and by the end of the day, some snow to low levels for central and southern Scotland as well, as cold air seeps in from the north and winds will pick up again from the west too. Tomorrow evening, a yellow be aware warning from the Met Office for snow showers and icy conditions that will last throughout the day on Tuesday. So for Tuesday, temperatures not much off freezing. It'll be windy with frequent wintry showers. That's the forecast.
OK, Gillian, thanks for that. And that's Reporting Scotland for now. Our next update is just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, have a good night. Bye-bye.